Well, hello my friends, I hope you are doing well. Yes, I still start every morning exactly the same way with Tave. If you're new to this channel and you don't know what that program is that I keep having up, there's always a link down below that you can join. It's a client management software that helps me track everything, like all my expenses, my invoices, all my bookings, my leads, everything. It has changed my business so much. This is not an ad whatsoever, but I always have a link down below for you to check it out. So many of you that watch this channel have joined it. It's incredible. So obviously a few of you have noticed, a few of you have commented and asked different questions about what lenses we've switched to since I obviously posted that video a couple of days ago talking about getting rid of a lot of lenses. We are switching to mostly all Voigtlander lenses. This lens specifically is the very first one I got because I really wanted it for the vlog, which is the Voigtlander 10.5 f/0.95, so it's the equivalent of like a 21 millimeter, probably closer to f/1.4-ish or something, 1.8 maybe. Really have been happy with what I'm getting, and a lot of you have noticed it and said the same thing, so thanks for the compliments. So this was the very first lens that I bought, the 10.5, and then we're also buying the 42.5, which is an 85 millimeter equivalent. We bought the 25 millimeter, which is a 50 millimeter equivalent, and then most likely replacing the 35 to 100s, which are 70 to 200 equivalents, replacing them most likely with 75 millimeter 1.8s. I cannot wait to get all the other lenses, and once I get them all, I'll of course do full in-depth reviews, but so far my in-depth review of the 10.5 millimeter is just that it's a great lens. Obviously having full manual focus is something to get used to, but I'm kind of used to manually focusing in vlogs anyway because I always have done it because the GH5 autofocus isn't good, so I've kind of always been used to kind of reaching over and adjusting focus before I talk anyway, so not a huge deal for me. I love having this manual aperture ring here because I can kind of just very subtly, as you see, change the aperture, which is great when you're actually doing a shoot and you need to adjust something. I'm thinking this lens will be a pretty good lens for the gimbal because it's nice and wide, yet you can still get good depth of field if you get close to them, but I'm not positive. I'm still undecided of what lens I'll actually use specifically for the gimbal, but I love them so far. They just feel solid, they look good, they work good, they feel like they're built like tanks, which is great.
Yo, I was just gonna message you.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
Okay.
Why? That means you needed something.
I'm scheduled for acoustic guitar.
I know.
No.
Yeah, I put you on.
No.
Can you do it or what?
No.
I didn't do it on accident.
No.
You can do one song, right?
I haven't played in like 3
Oh,
months.
when's that date?
September 30th.
That means you have 7 weeks. Do one song.
But what song?
I don't know. You're picking the set list. You decide.
I don't have any calluses. Do you think I could build them by then?
Yeah. Well, and you won't really that need calluses that much for one song. Like,
but it hurts so bad
well,
when
then you
I
gotta
play.
start practicing. Check out Jenny's debut acoustic thing I'm putting on record now, so she has to do it. September 30th will be her debut acoustic worship leading segment. Make sure you check it out. Dude, you excited about Jenny's debut there?
Oh yeah.
She's gonna be great.
The best part is that she didn't even know about it.
Yeah, she just found out today. When I first started in cinematography, as I mentioned, my very first lens I ever had was a 24 to 105 on a Canon. And 24 to 105 is a great focal length because it covers kind of everything you need on any given day. But yet it's amazing what actual lens compression does for an image. If you're unfamiliar with lens compression, there's a big, huge difference between what an 85 millimeter looks like and a 20 millimeter looks like. Obviously not just from the wide standpoint, but the idea of you taking an exact same image and making it the exact same size in a frame. The difference of lens compression makes a huge difference in what actually the image looks like. See, let me demonstrate. So first off, I apologize if I keep now looking at the screen because I want to really make a point to be able to show you exactly comparisons. But this shot right here is on my 10.5 millimeter f/0.95 lens. So pretty wide lens. It's a 21 millimeter equivalent, but it's a fairly wide lens. So if I keep this framing in mind, where let's just say I have this much headroom and I'm basically to my chest here, and I'm at 1.2 aperture, let's just say that's what I'm at right now in this lens. But you can see how the background is further away from me with what the lens is doing. The lens is putting depth of field behind me, which is fine, but you can see how the background still looks pretty far away from me. That's what a wide angle lens does, and that's the shot you get from it. Now, if I switch lenses, okay, so I've now switched lenses to the 25mm at the same exact aperture in the exact same location. I've moved the camera back a bit, so obviously the framing can remain the same, but you can see that roughly I have the same amount of headroom as I did. I have the same amount of shot that's basically to roughly my chest. The audio is not as good because I'm further away, obviously, but notice how much different the background is. Not only in depth of field, because obviously at 1.2 aperture it's still going to have a nice depth of field to it, but notice how much closer the background looks to me. I'm no closer to the background than I was. It's just the compression of the lens brings the background closer to me. Alright, so now I've switched to about 50mm, so about a 100mm equivalent, and you can notice even at f2.8, because that's the lowest this goes, look at how close the background has got to me. The depth of field is nice and creamy, but just notice what a difference this look is. I have not moved any closer to that wall, and you can see that it feels like it's right on top of me. And that's a very different look. Depending on what your background was, that could be a big deciding factor in what you're actually trying to do. Okay, now I switched back to the Voigtlander so I didn't have to scream anymore. That was really far away from me. But notice again, look at how far the background is away from me now. Same position, roughly the same framing. I've been trying to think a lot more lately about lens choice when I'm actually choosing something, much more than simply just what lens do I have on me, which one has the lowest aperture, because it's also important to notice that at 200mm on a lens, the lens compression is so strong that your depth of field at even f2.8 or f4 is still way stronger than getting something really wide with a really low aperture. So if I had a 70-200 2.8 and I was all the way in at 200mm at f2.8, the depth of field is going to be extremely shallow, and maybe what you're looking for, but even more shallow than if I had a 25mm or 35mm at f1.4 or even 1.2, because the compression is going to change that so much. But most importantly, the background really changes, not the depth of field, but just how close and how far away it gets from the subject. So I really encourage you to think about that when you're shooting. Think about how important it is. Like, do you want to bring people into the scene more in a more emotional way by really bringing the background closer and compressing it even more? Choose a longer lens for that. Choose something like 100 or 200mm and really bring that background closer while still being out of focus. Can really be a nice look depending on what you're going for. Now, where that's also important to note is that lens compression does create more depth of field even with a higher aperture. So if you are looking for more depth of field and you don't necessarily have prime lenses or something that is very low aperture, here's what you can do that really will help and probably surprise you with the results. Even if you have, let's just say, a kit lens that comes with something like a Canon that is a 100 to 300mm, and let's just say it's a f4.5 to f6.5 or something high aperture where naturally you're thinking, oh, I can't really get a lot of depth of field because f6 is not going to be shallow whatsoever. Well, at 300mm, it's going to be pretty shallow even at f6.5. So as long as you have enough light and aperture is not needed for the sake of keeping the actual light down, a trick is that if you're doing an interview or something where you want more depth of field and you don't have a lens that has a very low aperture, choose the longest lens that you have and just back up as far as you can and let the lens compression do the out of focus depth of field for you. It's a trick I've used so many times when I don't necessarily have the right lens with me or I'm looking for a certain look, especially if you're in a situation like an interview or something where you can set the camera up wherever you need. Just back way up. You're going to get your audio source from somewhere else anyway. It's not going to be on camera, so have the camera be really far back, compress all the way into the tightest you can get, and as long as you have enough light and you're not going to get noise from being at f6.5, you'll still get a good result from it. So try it out. I would love to see kind of some experiments you try on your own and hear back from you of what works, and if this was helpful to you, fantastic. I definitely want to share a lot more on this topic and do another whole video that shows even more comparisons of what different lenses look like, because I think so many of you and so many people that are new to cinematography don't realize what a huge difference that makes. And if I can help in any way, I'd love to. So be on the lookout for more of those things. Hopefully this video was somewhat helpful to you. Thanks for watching as always. If you're new to this channel, would love for you to subscribe. And yeah, I try to do this as often as possible, so thanks for being here.